Hi there, I'm Carrie Ellis, author of 21st Century Superhuman. This is our 21st Century Superhuman show, and today I have a wonderful crew with me. We are all students of the Keshe plasma technology, and we have all had on our hearts a desire to help in the areas that are experiencing disasters, flood, fire, etc. I have with me today Tom Salas. Hi Tom, how are you?
Hi, Carrie. Thanks for having me on.
And Tom, I think you're getting pulled to the front of the line here to head up a little bit of the plasma technology relief teams and come up with concepts. So this was perfect timing. I've been feeling for the last couple of months like I really wanted to put this out, and I've been working on images for how-to videos. And I know you've been making how-tos, and Heather and Yasmine as well. So we also have Heather, and Tom was just on the 193rd Knowledge Seekers session and the 11th One Nation, One Planet, One Race for World Peace in nice discussions on this with Mr. Keshe. So if somebody's wanting to learn, they can tune into this. And Heather Bryant.
Hello.
Good to see you, my dear sister.
Yes, thanks for inviting me. So much exciting stuff going on in this arena and a lot of opportunities.
You are one of my favorite detail people. The things you put together are always amazing. So as we get into the show, we're going to see some of your details. You're good at putting little packages and ideas and guidelines. So we love having your participation.
Thank you.
Go ahead, sorry.
I would say necessity is the mother of invention, and when it's necessary to put the things together, they just come together.
Yes. And as we move into this belief, this desire, this knowledge that we have that we can become one nation, one race, one planet, our hearts are stirred to help do this work.
Yes.
So Yasmine, you are together with us up in Washington, right? And you're a survivor of Hurricane Harvey down in Houston?
Yes, right. And thank you for inviting me. And yes, I can tell that Keshe technology works for us. Any damage in our properties and material stuff. And we just are very close to the Rio Brazos, who is the biggest one in the one who flooded Houston area. So it's a miracle.
Yes. Good. Well, we'll look forward to hearing your comments as we go along here. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, everybody.
And Violet, you are down in the Philippines, and I know that you are pulling yourself out of amazing health challenges with the Keshe technology. You're using plasma on a daily basis, pulling yourself out of really severe autoimmune illnesses that you were not even expected to survive a few months, and here you are a year later. And so we're going to watch for thank you for the messages you've been writing us already. And we're happy to have you here. And we will we'll be taking your messages and relaying them as we go along. And I know you have a lot of experience being in the Philippines. You were sharing with us this morning about having a place such as a P.O. box to ship items to, and having a communication device of some sort, such as a satellite phone, if there were groups of people going in. So, Tom, you want to springboard us into this talk and give us some of your thoughts? I know you were a resident of Dominica, and which is an island that's been really trashed in the hurricanes. Tell us a little bit of your viewpoint on this.
Okay, thanks, Carrie. Yeah, I've had a few experiences now since living in the Caribbean of disaster, and basically a couple of years ago, a little bit of the backstory. I was living in the Caribbean for the last 10 or 12 years, and Dominica is a very tiny little island, which is a very basic place, not much infrastructure, and it's one of the poorest islands in the Caribbean. And we're pretty used to getting heavy weather down there. You know, it's a normal thing. You're in the Caribbean, you get that time of the year when it comes around, and you brace yourself for getting trashed every year. But the 2 years back, we had some out of season, very intense flooding, and a lot of people died. A lot of people lost their homes. A lot of people lost their businesses and so on. So at that point in time, I was studying with Keshe Foundation, as most of you guys are. And I put a call out there, kind of like a little cry for help, like, yo, we've just had this crazy disaster. Is there anything anyone can do out there to help? And we got this really lovely response back of, yeah, we're here, you know, and a wave of people offering their help. And so what happened after that scenario, we got out of there. We left Dominica, and I moved across to Mexico, which is where I am now with my family.
And I will, Tom, I'll jump in and say, we know I've spent quite a bit of time in Central and South America as well, and there can be really torrential storms down there. And we've both experienced that and talked about it. And yet at the same time, we seem to be, for whatever reason we want to explain it with, we are experiencing some planetary extremes. Correct?
Yep. And they're getting more and more intense, and they're getting more and more regular. And so
I see this as an opportunity for us as humanity, for everyone I'm sure people's hearts are moved just like ours are, many in the teachings, it's not just us, and that our hearts are moved to teach, to learn, to grow. And the Keshe Foundation is just standardizing a lot of its teachings as well, and inviting teachers, people to come and be trained, so that we can have more people trained around the world. And I think sometimes when things are down and difficult, the best in us rises. And
in every disaster there comes a little flower of opportunity, which is if you're able to, you can catch on to that and make good things happen. And that's kind of what happened with us. I mean, we're now living in Mexico, and Mr. Keshe asked me the other day if I felt like heading up the disaster relief, the plasma relief that they're going to try and organize. And I've told him, well, let's go and have a look at it, you know, and we'll see. So I'm going to head out to Dominica in the next couple of weeks, which has just been trashed again. And that was Hurricane Maria. And that just devastated the island. This time, I mean, when I was there, we saw some horrendous stuff, and it was pretty bad. And Dominica is just clawing its way back to reality again, and then bounce it again. And this time,
and you were saying you've seen pictures and communication of really people just having nothing, barely having shelter, and
it's basically come down to that. A lot of people have lost their rooms. It's homes. Sorry, it's one of the poorest islands in the Caribbean, so people are already living in basic conditions.
So let's talk about that. Let's talk about that a minute. And I'd like to hear from Yasmine also how it's been for her in the Houston area, because I know some of the communication that came from Puerto Rico said that, you know, animals die, you know, mice, rats, squirrels, and then they end up in the sewage systems and the water systems, and the sewage systems back up, and then there ends up being odor. And so then we're dealing with the potential for cholera, bacterial-borne illnesses.
Leptospirosis from the rats too.
Okay.
Yeah, it becomes very, very, very susceptible to disease.
Right.
And that's pretty. It's almost as bad as the initial strike of the hurricane that causes the chaos. You get this aftermath of very depressing, very dirty, really ugly environment to be living in. You're surrounded by mud, which dries up, and then it gets dusty, and it's not nice. So and it's one of the things that with the Keshe tech that we can help to affect positively.
Yes.
Because there are solutions in there for water purification and other things, you know, pain relief. Heather's got a lot of experience working with the pain relief and all these kind of things, but water purification is a biggie, and that's something we're going to be focusing on.
Mm-hmm. Yasmine, do you have the ability to hop back on a minute and tell us how these items have been in the Houston area as far as water and cleanliness, and what challenges you guys have had? We have to unmute you, my dear. Here, let me unmute you. Okay, go ahead. Oops. Got her muted again.
Plus, the most important thing was to be calm and to think and do what will be better next. We got patches, balance patches, zinc, CO2. Basically, is what we use. The water was from stores 2 days before the hurricane arrived. So we weren't prepared with water. So we took it from we took tap water and fill our bottles, empty bottles. So we were used to buy bottles, but also we couldn't boil the water. So we trust in our experiments before with to clean water, and we use that also for sharing. That is important, and for us, because also we got the hurricane, we got several tornadoes, and we needed to be awake. So being awake so many hours and you don't have the moment to sleep gives you the sense that need to be more calm. So we also set an intention every day with the patches, with the GANS, and pray, and we meditate, and because we needed to avoid the tornadoes, because you can track the hurricane and maybe you have time for a run of the flood, but for the tornadoes you don't have a lot of time. And then we pray for to move the tornadoes with our ganses and our patches. And also I want to say thank you to Heather, because Heather, since the beginning, she will learn about the technology. She always provided from health patches and all the information. So we learn from her. So we got also spray the house, the building. We spray. She told us to spray the building. Also using the dry machine.
So you were spraying the building with plasma water, correct?
Plasma water, right?
Yes.
And the building, any building in the community that we live got damaged. Even the trees help us a lot. They don't fail. So
I'm getting goosebumps. You know, this is interesting because Hurricane Irma was supposed to come up the east coast of Florida, and I'm based out of Florida when I'm in the States on both sides. And so it was supposed to come up the east side, but it switched and went over to the west, sort of on the spur of the moment. And when it went up the west side, I have friends who are very intensive meditators. Many of them have plasma and plasma tools, and they started at Sarasota and went all the way up into the panhandle of Florida. And by the time that the hurricane got to us, which was supposed to be category 4 or 5, and it pulled the water out of Tampa Bay, the water never came back into Tampa Bay, and it was all category 1 by the time it got there. So remembering how powerful we are just with our intent also to hold protection to before these things happen or when they're happening, instead of getting all ramped up by the news and the fear tactics. Instead, like you said, spraying with GANS, using our plasma patches, using our MOGRAV devices, and then using our minds and hearts for positive intent. There's really a great deal that we can do even on the front end with that, and I think that's really important to remember.
I want to add another point, important note. I remember Carolina de Ruz always said that we needed to go, and also you did it, I remember past years, go to the rivers or to the, or fountains, and then put a plasma water and talk to the land, to the earth. And we did that just few months before, and I think also that helped us to with the Rio Brazos, because we talked with the Rio Brazos before.
Yes.
Then we went to the park. So
yes, I make a habit of doing that as well. And whenever I travel, wherever I go, I'm always putting plasma water into the waters. And you can either put it in directly, or you can put it in a container that gets thrown in to be held in one place. And I'd like to see everyone around the world putting that into practice. Good intentions, love, breathing, smiling, seeing peace on the planet. Because what it does is it activates the natural earth spirals with the magnetic fields that are in the plasma. We're reactivating natural spirals instead of having everything kind of garbled up by all the electromagnetic waves that we're being subjected to all the time. So,
Carrie, we had a nice experience of this over in Dominica too, because I've been using plasma in the garden. We had a real lovely tropical garden up there, and we were always making our little experiments and using the plasma in the garden and whatever. And the first time that we had this strike of crazy weather, the garden was preserved, man. It was like we were looking all around everywhere else and it was flattened, ruined, destroyed. And we were standing in the garden that we've been looking after, which is about an acre of land. And it was in really good shape, man. And we were just like, for me, I could see the dome over it. You spray plasma around your home and your garden and you will create some kind of protective dome, vortex.
I have
energy
total
field.
chills. Yes.
Yeah, man. And at that point is where I was like, okay, I'm starting to get that this is really a bit more than it seems like,
Yes. Heather, you're the queen of putting plasma everywhere. I mean, I learned when I stayed with you when we were on tour, spray the car, spray the house, spray the yard. I mean, you are just the queen of that. And I loved it.
I keep trying to pull together information. Like there's a little video even from one of the classes we did here called Plasma Fire Life. So, and it's just the more ideas you get, the more ideas you get, so many ways.
Hanging up ping pong balls with GANS in them around the yard, making mobiles out of it, making mobiles. I just left a friend's place in Costa Rica and I made them. Everywhere I go, I make GANS. If I travel, I make fast GANS, I make slow GANS, I make whatever kind of GANS I can make. I find whatever resources are in the neighborhood. I took old pieces of wire from a car and stripped the plastic off. And then I had copper wire that I could use. And I made a whole bunch of pens, health pens, real simple health pens. Mine are nowhere near as pretty as Tom's. Mine are just simple. And I'll use a chopstick to roll it on or whatever I have available, or pencil, pen, and then made figure eights. Carolina recommended figure eights. And so I made a lot of figure eights for him. He's hung them up all around his place. Health pens. He's putting GANS everywhere, putting it in his car, plasma water. He's doing his laundry with it. So we have a hub there, because I've gone there and visited and helped educate. They're starting to do it there now. And we can create these amplified fields with this clear magnetic resonance that can help clear the disturbing energies that have been going around.
Carrie, it's one of the things that we're focusing on with the plasma relief stuff. And that is just what you're talking about there, is cobbling together any bits and pieces and using it productively to create the plasma. And it's one of the reasons I'm so interested in plasma, is because I have an interest in sustainability. I have an interest in looking after our planet and keeping everything to a minimum, and using the plasma tech. It's such a sustainable subject. Everything gets used and reused again. Yes. You can either go to the store and buy what bits and pieces you need, or you can just find them.
Yes. And I think it's when we're from a first world country, like I'm from the States, we think everything is just there at our fingertips. But when you go to these simpler cultures, you realize you have to search for things. Like when I'm in Mexico, in the Yucatan, you can't even get heavy copper wire down there. You have to really search, maybe it used, but they have this little thin wire that they've twisted. Let's talk about the details of that a little bit. Anybody who's got input, and Violet has written us a note. She's being quiet because her breathing, she has a breathing apparatus she's using, but she is saying she's with us. She's agreeing with what we're saying. So I know, I've kind of looked around and gone, Coca-Cola and Nestle's have taken over everywhere in the world when you go in these little stores in these other cultures. But you know what's great to make GANS in is old soda bottles, and they're everywhere. And there's no question about whether you can get a container. And people say, well, what about plastic? Well, it adds a little carbon, you know. So, and then
you can be the poorest person on the planet, and you can find a way to do this stuff.
Yes. So, let's talk about the details of that a little bit.
Well, I've got something I can add, that those of us that are working with plasma, we're working with the elements and the minerals and whatever the earth has there already. We're moving it from its matter state into its nano state and into the plasmatic state. And once you shift it, the vibration changes. You're opening the atomic structure of whatever the matter that you started with. It can be a herb, it can be anything on the earth. And we've understood how to open the energy of that element. And so there are so many natural ways of working with plasma, and people don't even realize, hey, if you're working with ashes,
yes,
working it in the nano state, it's vibrating differently. And so one of the things that we're going to try and promote and show people is that just by burning something, every tree, every herb has its mineral content and what it's made of. You burn that herb or whatever it is, you're going to put it into its nano state, and it will vibrate differently for you. You can create a pain patch out of burning, have a fire, take those ashes, drop it into a little baggie, put the ashes on your pain, and you're going to see the pain relief. People haven't clicked on yet that this kind of basic, what might appear to be almost shamanistic, ritualistic ways of doing things with fire and the elements, you're working with plasma.
Right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let's talk about, let's just go through some real specific steps. For instance, if we're going to make GANs, we'd like to have a piece of copper if we can get it, and we'd like to nanocoat it. So what are some of the ways that you found copper laying around these countries you've been in? And Violet is telling us, she wrote us a note that she's using her tubing from her oxygen unit that is helping her with her breathing, and she's making GANs bracelets out of it and taking them into the homeless communities. So I found old wire that came off of cars or came off of different mechanical devices and just stripped the plastic off. But any other suggestions you have on finding a piece of copper?
I haven't been anywhere in the world yet that I can't find copper.
Cool.
It's always around.
You're a guy, and I think guys and girls have a little bit different, you know, you're more familiar maybe with junkyards and automotive things, and I don't know, because it's harder for me to figure out where to find it, just because of, I don't know where it would be. So give us a few clues.
Yeah, I mean, every home has wiring in it. So if the scenario is one where you've just had a little bit of chaos land on you, and, you know, every home has, all its wiring is copper. Generally any piece of wire, if you open it up, I mean, 90% of the bits of wire you will find anywhere lying around will have copper on the inside of it.
Okay.
And it doesn't matter if it's tiny multi-strand wire, thick wire. Plasma doesn't really know size. Plasma works through, it uses that as the vehicle. So be it, I've experienced what you'd said there about just being able to find the very thin multi-strand. Yes. Well, great, just coil it,
right?
Join it to whatever other element you want, put it in a salt water, and you're going to find you're creating plasma.
And so if we want to nanocoat the copper, there's multiple ways we can do that. I was doing it in Costa Rica over a gas burner on a stove. In the United States, we get lye, which is also called caustic. In the Central American countries, we get potassia, so that's potassium hydroxide, and that's the 100% for plumbing. And so I'll use a little bit of that in a Ziploc bag and put it out in the sun and use the heat of the sun plus the potassia. And so you can use the burner on a stove, or you could use a torch if you had it. And then some of the other ways are ash, and ash actually makes natural caustic. So if you had ash from a wood fire, you can take it and cook it a little bit with water, and you literally end up with a caustic solution that you can nanocoat copper with. So this is just like a rundown of putting on our thinking hats and getting creative and learning a lot of basic, simple skills. Any other input, you guys, on nanocoating copper so that we can make GANs out of it, finding copper, nanocoating?
I can go all day on this, but I want Heather to jump in.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that I've found that the copper wire, to me, is easier to nanocoat than a copper plate. And so that is easier to find anyways, and that's what we put in our little kits when we make a little kit and send it to people, because sometimes you can make several batches off of one nano coating, whereas, you know, with the plates, sometimes it's one. So
yeah, and I love making coils out of wire and nano coating them and then using them in my GANs process. It seems to give it a nice energy.
Yeah, totally
agree. And Violet is saying use trees that have fallen down in the storm or the fire to burn to make the charcoal out of, or the coal, the ash.
Right. That makes sense. And then I know you're on copper, but the subject of zinc, you know, people can find those in batteries that have been tossed.
Absolutely. And you don't want to take apart an alkaline battery. I don't think. I've been told to just take apart the old, more old-fashioned kind of batteries.
Heavy-duty batteries.
I know Eveready. I took apart a Panasonic the other day, and there's a nice piece of zinc in there, and there's a carbon stick. If somebody was stuck and they needed to make fast carbon stick GANs, that is a nice way to do it. Even though it's not the most recommended, the nano-coated copper is first, of course.
And the other thing that might be more readily available is chicken wire, because they make, you know, stucco houses.
And that has zinc on it, right?
It's galvanized. Galvanized. It's a good way to start, you know, to make your CH3, and you can even, you know, if you use it just to make some CO2, as soon as you know, see it starting to lose its galvanized, then that's when it's going into the CH3. So
yeah, good girl. Good girl. That's exactly right. Yeah.
So I put that. I like that for the kits because it works quite well.
And these are things readily available anywhere. Yasmine, any thoughts from down in your neck of the woods, girl?
Yes, I think what we have is very easy to find. The chicken wire is what we did the first, but also we could find trash cans in dollar store that are made from zinc. So also we couldn't find the zinc flakes, so my husband is also very handy, and we buy the pipes and we open it. And also that is in a house you can find a pipe that is not working very well, and you can cut it and make it.
What kind of pipe is that? I guess I'm not familiar.
For zinc or also
so it would be a copper pipe or a zinc pipe?
Right.
Okay. Good. Good. Yes, very good.
So more or less anything that's been galvanized is a zinc coating. Right. So they use galvanization to help with rusting.
Right.
To stop things rusting. So anything that's got a galvanized coating on it, you're going to be able to put that in your kit. Nice. It will produce you a zinc oxide, and then, as Heather said, the galvanized coating will wear down, and it'll take you to whatever metal is behind it, and then that will start coming into play with what plasma you produce.
And so, Tom, in our conversation the other day, Heather, was somebody else?
Well, just on that zinc subject, I know they use it a lot in boating type parts. So, you know, in that disaster situation where boats have been tossed and they're turned over and they're all broken up, there's going to be a lot of galvanized things.
Yes, absolutely. And they have solid zinc on boats too. I've had people from boat yards bring me solid pieces of zinc. So one of the things we were talking about the other day, Tom, is getting CO2 and zinc GANs made to just help people be calm. Getting these made and getting them into the environment, adding them to our water to help purify it. And I was just watching Mr. Keshe the other day on the 193rd that you were on, and he was drawing the picture of how the GANs makes the magnetic fields, and then the water flows in between that, and that's what purifies the water. And you and I have done this. I don't know, Heather, if you have, or Yasmine, but I know, Tom, you were kind of famous for making a nice big health cannon at one point, which was a tube. And, you could even take a small soda bottle and put, a nano-coated copper coil in that and put it in a bigger container of water. And that will literally, overnight, it will cause any particulate in that water to just fall to the bottom. And I've done this many times myself. I try it every time I'm around funky tap water that may have fluoride in it or any of that kind of stuff. I just, or water in Mexico, I'll put it, you could put a nano-coated copper in a Ziploc. You could put it in a plastic bag. You could put it in a tube if you have it.
Yeah, right. I think what's important to point out for anyone that's listening to this that maybe isn't familiar with the plasma tech.
Right, because we're going to get into the how-tos, but I wanted us to have this discussion for people to get what are the ideas we want to use as kind of our boundaries. But go ahead.
So for me, one of the most important things to point out is, and this is what's peculiar to most people, is that you can create nanomaterials and plasma, and they're going to work through the container. It's field energy, so it's not something that is contained. Maybe if you use a lead box or something, maybe you'll contain some of the plasma fields. But basically, put your plasma in any container, and it's going to work through that. In this case, it's glass. It's going to work through it, so you're able to be affected by the fields of that energy regardless of what it's in. So that's why it's such an amazing subject. Basically, you can work magic with this stuff, Yeah, there you go. Look, you're using those to nano coat them, right? You need to unmute yourself.
Thank you.
I think you're unmuted. Yeah, you go.
Thank you. Copper scrubber from the grocery store or from under your kitchen sink, and it needs to be the copper one, but these can be nano-coated. So we're going to get into detailed videos that are going to be fast and succinct on how to make GANS, how to use it, what it's good for, how to nano-coat, just these really simple basic skills, because these can be used to such a great extent in areas where there have been disasters. And of course, building MAGRAV units, etc., on top of all that is wonderful. I remember Mrs. Keshe getting a hold of me last year and saying, please just ask people to build MAGRAV units in their community, because we will begin setting up these natural fields around the earth where this positive energy can be transmitted. And so I think it's important, as we see this intensification happening on the planet, as we live in these times of great change, as I wrote about in my book, we are, besides following up the disasters and going and assisting, we need to start thinking in new ways and saying, let's get this stuff done in our world. It's not that difficult. And these are everyday skills. Kids can learn them. And we want to just encourage people to get educated. And we will put out videos again on details. And Tom, you were suggesting also the other day, creating really small, like one sheet of paper that has all the steps on how to do something on it, being able to laminate it and take it or send it into a disaster area, because they may not have phone service. They may not have electricity. And those may be iffy even in, they may not be able to watch a video.
Yeah, right. We want to get the information, put it in a very simple, understandable term, which is one of the things Heather's really good at, where it's no frills and you don't need that high level of technical know-how to get your head around it. We're trying to compress it and put it into very simple couple of sheets of paper, like you say, laminate it so that we don't need digital communications, because that goes down anytime there's a disaster of any kind. So you're on pen and paper when it gets like that. And so we want this information to be really, really simply laid out, so that it can then just be passed on and put into the hands of folks who can just, we want people to be able to just look at this and be able to understand it very simply.
Right.
Because the information can be very, very, very technical in plasma land. There are a lot of big brains out there who are just like exploding with information and where this can go. And for your average guy on the street like me, it's just like, what are these guys talking about? I have no idea.
But the simple stuff.
There's a lot of us out there that are doing it, that have got our heads around the simplicity of it. And that's what needs. This is really doable. You really don't have to be a physicist or a scientist to do. I've just made a little video that was the simplest way I can show of making the plasma, and it really is like you just said. Put a piece of copper over the stove till it goes grey. Join it to a piece of zinc. Put it in salt water. You're going to have plasma that you can then spray, use for pain relief. Use it in all these different applications. It's as simple as. And
to throw in there, we always rinse the plasma water after we make it.
It's a little cleaning process. I made a little follow-up video to the. I've put them on the golden age of GANS. So there's those little how-to videos there.
Right. Heather, do you want to pull up some of your images and just talk to us about those really quick? I know you were very instrumental in sending supplies to Standing Rock. One of the things you bring up that I love is doing community development of health pads and of health patches and pens, and then shipping those to an area that needs them as well. So we don't have to go to the disaster. We can work at home and help the disaster relief. So go ahead.
Right. Well, that was definitely something that just kind of evolved itself. You know, it was just started with a desire to help the people that were involved in the whole Standing Rock project, right? And so the people in the community here said, you know, let's just get together and have a patch party. You know, it's going to be kind of a simple thing and donate some items. And this document I have up here, it was like, well, what would you send with it? If you made a patch and sent it someplace where nobody has any idea what plasma is, you know, what would you send with it? So, I mean, I update them regularly. In fact, I updated this morning.
And just what I'm going to do for people's information, and I know, Heather, you have a website. I'm going to make one page on my website, which is 21stcenturysuperhuman.com. I'll put this video. I'll put a whole lot of different document PDFs that can be downloaded that anybody can use anywhere, and we'll put links to these other videos like the one Tom's been making and some that Heather have made, other ones that I've done, and we'll try and put a composite of material together that anybody could go to and find information and data that they can use and education.
Oh yeah, please. I'd love for people to use it, because it was the only reason I made it is because I kind of had to, right? It's like, if you're going to send this to somebody, what would you tell them? So that either the person carrying it, you know, would have something physically to hand them. And so the patch just doesn't get lost, basically. And on this one, I've added today, just like on the bottom 2 little boxes, you know, these are some things that you could print out and put on the patch. You know, realize what you have in your hand. Don't open it or throw it away. We tried to make something that was short and simple that would fit on a patch, right? Nice. And then this other one, get the plasma water in 3 ways, and then here's some options, that kind of thing.
Nice.
This morning I kind of fiddled with one. I'll stop the share for a second. You know, the main problem we were having was that the instruction sheets would get wet, right? Or get away from the plasma patch. So this is a gallon size bag, you know, and on each side I've just sealed it where I can put the plasma water in there. So there's 5 mLs of plasma water on this side and 10 mLs on this side. So
wow, you are so ingenious. So you've got little tubes of plasma water, and then you've got the thing in the middle telling you what to do with it.
Yeah, so
you're
something
so
like
smart.
That, you know, and well, again, necessity is the mother of invention, right? Because it's like, well, how do you make sure that the instruction sheet stays with the plasma to begin with, and then gets to where it needs to go?
Very good.
I don't know if you want me to go into the whole thing we did at Standing Rock.
I wouldn't go into a lot of details, but maybe you could skim through a few things because I think that's appropriate for here and now.
So let me make sure I'm sharing that part of the
Violet
screen.
says, perfect, Heather.
So it was important to have a letter to go with. So Yasmine, thank you. Helped to inspire this letter. What would we say to the medic team? Just some communication that says, this is what we did and we're thinking about you and we love you and we're trying to help you, you know?
Nice. And again, we'll put all this as downloadable material so you guys can read it in detail.
So this was specifically to the medic team that we were trying to contact, which we did somewhat, but mostly we did it through individuals that just synchronistically got on the road, right?
Nice.
When we had the patch party, we, had people donate socks, gloves, all that kind of stuff. They made all the different patches. The same patch, we called it Peace Dove patch.
Nice.
Put instructions on it and tried to package it in a way that it could be sent. Plasmified all those things. Basically, we just sprayed it with that water and put it in the dryer and dried it. That was it. I mean, I didn't soak it in it because I wanted the packaging to stay with it. We sent patches with like ace wraps and knee supports. These were all Dollar Tree stuff.
Nice.
And
great ideas.
Eye drops, the back patches. The little hair elastics were to keep the patch on somebody's bottle. And we actually sent some empty bottles, which was important because they were having a hard time finding clean empty bottles.
Nice.
So at least they would have something to put some snow in and let it, because it was a frigid, cold, oh God, difficult situation there that nobody would imagine until they got into it, I suppose. And so we made some of them into like lanyard type of things where they could just hang it around their neck with a lace, right? But you can't necessarily just send this, right? It's beautiful. It's a beautiful document, but someone's going to look at it and go, huh?
Wow, right. Yes. You need a little education to use it.
Right. So it was like, that was our initial idea, was to just send that. We made some plasma lotions and gels. We sent the trifecta kits and salt because, to be able to go through all that and make the kit to begin with is one subject, and actually doing it in those kind of situations is not necessarily possible.
Yes.
So I was just going to show this one because it's kind of cute. There's two beautiful young men that these boxes found. We didn't know them or know anything about them when we conceived this idea. Plasma is consciousness. To me, it finds a way and it makes the synchronicities for you, right? If it wants to get there and Gaia thinks it's useful, it's going to get there. And so in the course of, even a month before just conceiving this, we didn't know that Justin and Timothy were going to end up being the ground crew there and be the receivers of these boxes. So there's the box next to the teepee that finally made it to them.
Beautiful.
And like Violet was saying, very useful to have a P.O. box in the area. If someone can, it's very important to have basically a computer crew or an iPhone crew, because it's a 24/7 job. Where are these people at? Where are they going? Send them a map. Where's the nearest safe place they can go? Where's a P.O. box that we can pay for, for $10 a month and have a place to send to you? Different things. Yeah. Yeah, a lot of things that we didn't think of that, you think of in the process.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so there's a whole lot more on that subject. I don't know how much you want me to get into at this moment.
I think we probably are kind of, should probably kind of try and bring this to a closure, at least for time for right now. And
I did put some key points on a Word doc, so we can incorporate those however you think is.
Yes, I think what I want to do, and the Keshe Foundation and anybody else is welcome to use it to whatever extent they want, but I'll put a whole bunch of things on a page at my website where PDFs can be downloaded. We'll get as many of yours as makes sense, Heather. And I think the biggest thing that I get out of all of this is how critical it is. I mean, because I have people write me from all over the world. Oh, I want to learn how to do this or that. It's really not that hard, and we all need to start learning, and we need to start doing it in our communities now. As Yasmine said, for the Houston area, and as I saw on the west coast of Florida, if we're already proactive in sending peace into the world, the intentions of love and peace and change, and we are already making these things, we already are creating an amplified field, a dome, like Tom said, a protective field, but a field that will amplify out into our communities. And it makes us much better prepared when things do get a little convoluted. What else would you guys like to say to kind of like tie this up and move us forward into the next step?
Well, the thing that came up for me right quick, and I'll put that in there, is that no matter what we do physically on the ground with plasma and nano, or what we call in the fields with our intentions and our just kind of focus on an area, we're going to elevate the potentials and possibilities there. And even with the plasma on the ground, it was, like, well, is that little bit going to do any good? That kind of a question. And checking in with, how I do with Dr. Robert and things like that, checking the frequency of an area. It actually, just having that box that you saw and the other one from France in that area, it increased the frequency of the area by 3,000 hertz just by having that stuff floating around in the conversation, in the air, in our focus. And to me, that's a worthwhile endeavor for our time and energy to support an area.
I think, as I was saying before, that plasma knows no size, and it's the same when you're talking about it in that context, that even it being present in the conversation is doing something, even in tiny amounts in an area, will affect the frequency of that area. And it doesn't know size. It will amplify, and its resonance will spread. And who knows, we don't even have the tools yet to know how far plasma, and it's some of the thing that irks those science brains out there, that they want this quantifiable and they want to know how to measure it. And we don't have the tools for that yet, but those of us who are working with it know, right? We've experienced it, that this stuff has a huge range when working with it.
Well, I can tell that works. we are the experiment that works. And Heather is responsible too. So, and also in my hometown in Mexico City, my house mom and my sister's house, they didn't have any damage, so it works. So, thank you, Mr. Keshe. Thank you, Heather. Thank you, Tom, for all what you do, and especially Carrie. Thank you. It works. I can tell.
Beautiful.
It really does work, and there are a lot of skeptics out there who love to quash the whole idea, but these are people that haven't had a go at it. These are people who are reading second and third hand information online. This is a scam, this is this and that. But those of us who are working with it can testify. And what's starting to happen now, what's lovely, is there's so many volumes of information, there's so many testimonies, and there's so many people that are like you guys and like me, that are just normal people. We're not scientists, but we've gone out there, had a go at it. Now we're seeing the results. Now we're working with it full time. Most of us have dropped using pharmaceuticals anymore. Most of us have dropped using anything toxic in our gardens. And we're moving out. It's the paradigm shift. We're moving out of that old way of thinking and working. And we now have a new set of tools that we can very simply just go ahead and do what we're doing in life. In my family, we've got it totally implemented in every aspect. The kids burn themselves, boom, hand goes in the plasma. Absolutely. 30 seconds, no pain. Yeah. Someone gets sunburned, boom, plasma. 2 minutes, no pain.
Yes.
And these testimonies are everywhere now. And if the people who are a little bit skeptical about this stuff or are feeling it's a bit woo-woo, have a look online, man. There's so much info out there now that you can deny it if you want, but you're gonna just find you're swimming against the tide now, right?
Yeah, one of the other things that we didn't bring up is feeding. And I know that when I have really great GANSs around me, I feel like I'm fed and I feel like I'm nourished in an amazing way, because it's an energetic kind of nourishment. And being able to have great GANSs, and even, like you said, nano-coating herbs and turning them into an amplified material, or adding these things to our GANSs as we're making them. I've got a GANS here that was made with amino acids and collagen and gold GANS and herbs, and I don't even want to drink anything else. It goes on my water bottle, and I wrap the patch with that in it around my water bottle, and it's the sweetest, most delicious water I've ever drank, and I feel nourished and strong and clear and energetic. So
and that's very relevant in the disaster scenario too, because food and water get scarce.
Yes, because fighting for food and water, fighting for survival, that's what we want to be helping carry ourselves beyond. And that's the criticalness of these tools and the value of them.
Yeah, I've done it. I've created a plasma of food, and you know, I had some pretty hard times a while ago when I was shifting country and things were rough. And for a while there, I had a couple of weeks where I just said, you know what, I've got this plasma of the food. Let's see if this stuff works. And you'll still find your craving for the physicality of the food. But when you check your energy levels and stuff, you're like, well, okay, no, I'm not weakening.
Yeah.
You might still crave the physical, putting something in your mouth, chewing it and swallowing it. But you're being fed, you know. And it's another interesting point to mention if we're talking about food, is that basically the human system is a plasmatic system. When you consume food in the matter state, it goes into your mouth, you break it down, and then it hits the acids of the stomach. And it's the same process we're doing when we're creating plasmas. We use sodium hydroxide, we use hydrochloric acids, or whatever it is that you're putting it under that high temperature. And it's the same process. So this is how our human system breaks down and gives us the energies we need from the foods and whatever, a little plasma reactor inside our stomachs there. And it's the same process, no different at all. And once you start to see very simply how our system works, how the trees and plants work, how you start to connect all these dots, and it's like, bing, wow, we've been wasting our time for a long time on this planet. You know, time to start waking up and understanding how everything works, you know. It's simple. It's a no-brainer.
It is. I want to bring this to a close. Yasmine, did you have something else you wanted to say?
Yes, in respect of food, when we are in a stress mode, we notice with friends, they got anxious and they ate like, and I was like, oh, try to keep the food. We don't know how it's going to be after the hurricane, and if we are going to have stores. And in our case, we ate very few at the same as some. So for me, I hope for the future, we were a family that we cannot eat because I don't want to cook. I don't want to spend money cooking or in food, and more in getting the knowledge and sharing with everybody.
Violet says, eat plasma soup. That's a great idea. I love it. You could put plasma water in the pot with your veggies and cook it up. And
I on my coffee every morning is plasma coffee.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. All right. I wanted to thank you all so much for being here, us being here together and holding this field together. We're going to do a series of disaster relief videos, maybe a couple more discussions like this if we can pull in some of the other people that have been working in the field. And then we'll do a bunch of little how-tos. And I will get them all in one place, and anybody else is welcome to also share them. Doesn't have to be just at my site. It's just to get them somewhere where people can access, and PDFs that can be downloaded. And we'll talk about more ideas and ways to move ahead with all this and act on what's in our hearts to help ourselves and all of humanity.
Thank you, Carrie. I'd like to add also that if people want to support what we're doing here, if people want to donate, and that could be in any way, shape or form, it can be money, it can be physical help, it can be with supplies and what have you. We're trying to set up those platforms now. I know Keshe Foundation are organizing plasma relief, whether they've got that platform actually set up yet that people can donate and so on. I know there are ways through the foundation you can donate normally, but if there's going to be a specific one for plasma relief, I'm not sure yet, but I imagine there will be.
I imagine there will, and I'll get the link put under this video, and we can say go look at keshefoundation.org. That's
great. And that helps us a lot to really, when you take a US dollar and you put it on the ground in one of these poor countries, you'd be very surprised how far that can go.
Absolutely.
If we need to buy Ziploc bags to make pain patches, if we buy spray bottles and whatever. Really, every little dollar goes a very long way. So if anyone wants to help out like that, that would be super duper.
Very much.
Thanks.
Heather?
Yes, it's so worthwhile and necessary to put together some of these little succinct videos, and Carrie would be the queen of that. So let's looking forward to these being able to be available for people and a way to find the information if they need it.
Yep. And so here we go, humanity. Let's make this world rock into a world based in peace, love, and plenty for all. That's what we're here for.
Yeah.
Plasma and grace.
Violet, thank you for joining us. And remember, everybody out there, breathe, smile, and love. And we shall see you all soon.